Today is shoe day. I have had a lot of requests from people asking me about what shoes I wore on the Appalachian Trail and how to choose the best hiking shoes. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I started out wearing Saucony Peregrine 6 shoes that I absolutely loved, and I found them after a process of doing I don't know, 4 or 5 different shakedown hikes and trying out different pairs of shoes. Before I found those, they were trail runners, and they were my first pair of trail runners. Before I found them, I was actually wearing hiking shoes, not hiking boots, but hiking shoes like these Merrells. They're a little more structured than a trail runner. They've got, lots of grip and texture on the bottom to keep you from slipping, and I really did enjoy these as a day hiker. I felt like they were very comfortable, sturdy, gave me the support I needed, didn't have too much of the trail feel and rocks underneath. And this is a real popular type of shoe for day hiking. Now, a lot of people, when they're getting ready to start a thru hike, they think I need a shoe like this, or I need a boot for ankle support. But really, I find that trail runners are much more flexible, much more comfortable for long distance hiking. Now, one of the things to keep in mind when you're picking your shoes is an analogy that I get from my husband, and I know it's not an uncommon one, but you think about your tires for your car. They're probably the most important piece of equipment on your car because they keep your car in contact with the road and keep you safe and keep you from having an accident. Shoes are the same way for a thru hiker. It's really important to have that vital piece of equipment, not only protecting you from injury on the trail, helping to keep you from slipping, but also keeping your feet in good shape. Because if your feet are in pain, and I know from experience because I had foot issues for the majority of the trail, you're not a happy hiker. It makes it really tough to get up every morning and go if you feel like you've got blisters or you have other kinds of issues going on with your feet. So finding the right shoes is important. But with that in mind, and I see so many people doing this on Facebook groups and asking people, what shoes did you wear? What shoes did you wear? And they pick the most popular shoes. That's not the best way to choose your shoes. The shoes that are going to be best for you may be shoes that hardly anybody else wears. There are lots and lots of different brands of hiking shoes, and you really just have to try lots of different shoes to find the ones that work best for you. So I'm going to take you through and show you what I wore. I wore actually several different brands on the trail, and what I ended up with, and use that as information not only for the experience that I went through and trying lots of different shoes, but also information for you in terms of the thought process of how you might pick the right shoes for your hike. Now, as I mentioned, I started out wearing the Saucony Peregrine 6. I found those through a long process of elimination, and I loved them. And I actually bought 3 pairs. I had 2 Peregrine 6s and 1 Peregrine 7 that I planned to wear to get me through the whole trail. But after several weeks in the first pair of Peregrines, I switched out to the second pair, and I discovered that they didn't feel the same. I don't know what it was. They were just not quite right. So I tried out some new insoles because I was using the original insoles from the shoes, and they were, I believe, soft soles, and they held water like you wouldn't believe. So I ended up actually ditching the shoes and the insoles in a dumpster after I got my next pair. I didn't even try the Peregrine 7s. I said, I'm not even going to go there at this point. I need to switch up shoes. I was having a lot of foot pain, and I didn't know if that was pain due to the shoes or not, but I thought, I'll try something different and see how I do. Now, the first switch that I made was to a pair of oboes, and I literally just lasted like a day and a half in those, and they're a much stiffer shoe than the Sauconys. They're much more along the lines of the Merrells that had a lot of rigidity to the sole, and I thought maybe that would help my foot issues. It didn't. They really, really hurt my feet, and fortunately I had worked out a deal with the outfitter that once I tried them on the trail, if they didn't work for me, that I could send them back. And a lot of times, you might run into a store on the trail and they might say, okay, well, once they're worn, you can't bring them back. That's one reason that REI is a great outfitter, because you have up to a year to try things out and see if they work for you. But in this case, I was able to send them back and get a refund, which worked for me, because just wearing shoes in the store and walking around the store, or even walking around the blog, is probably not going to be enough to tell you if they're going to work for you on the trail. So what I did was sent those back, kept wearing the Peregrines for a little bit, and then as I was walking out of Damascus, I had just been dealing with that soggy shoe issue, and I literally was thinking in my head, I cannot do that again. And it was so wet on the trail. It's like, I know it's gonna rain, I know I'm gonna have soaking wet feet, and I cannot abide having feet that feel like that again. So I walked into Sundog Outfitters and I said, selling some shoes. It was 8:30 in the morning. I was surprised they were even open, but they were. And we tried lots of different shoes, and I ended up getting the Ultras. These are the Lone Peak 3.5s, and these, talking about popular shoes, these are some of the most popular shoes on the trail. Unfortunately, I was pretty disappointed in them. I noticed very early on, like within a week, that they were starting to come apart right here at the toe, which just, was a tripping hazard to me, and I did glue them when I was in a hostel. This one stuck together a little bit better with some of the glue I put on it, but I wasn't real happy with it. Now, these are zero drop shoes, and for some people, if you're coming out of a shoe with a much higher drop, which is, the drop is the measurement in millimeters between the heel and the toe, these are flat, so that's what zero drop means. I didn't have a problem because the Peregrines were only 4 millimeters, so it wasn't a big adjustment. But what I did find is that I slipped a lot in these shoes. They say they have a real grippy sole, but it wasn't nearly as grippy as the Peregrines. So I found that I was slipping, and some of the worst falls that I had was when I was wearing these. I also noticed that they were starting to come apart in other places. And I contacted Ultra and said, I'm not happy. These shoes should be lasting longer than that. They did send me a replacement pair, but by that time I had decided that with the slipping issues, I was actually getting very afraid of rocks because every time I was in a situation where I had to hike on wet rocks, I was so cautious and so slow because I was afraid I was going to fall. So I decided I'm going to try some different shoes. At that point, I made a choice to go into the La Sportivas. And part of the reason I chose those is because they had a booth at Trail Days, and they were selling some sample shoes, and I tried some on, and they fit well, and I liked them. And my brother had actually picked up a pair, and he wore them when we hiked together after Trail Days for a few days, and he was really happy with them. So I said, well, I'll give those a try. And I ordered some ladies' La Sportivas, but they tend to run small, and actually the ladies size, I'm an 8.5 in a regular street shoe, but I went up a size and a half in my trail shoes. So I went to a 10. With the La Sportiva, I needed a 10.5, and they did not have that in the lady size, the 42.5 in the European sizing. So I ended up going to the men's La Sportiva, and I started out with the ones that you may have seen. They're bright red and yellow, and not the most attractive shoe if you're fashion conscious, but they worked. They were great for me. And so I ended up getting a second pair. This is my second pair that I ended the trail with. Same shoe, just a different colorway, bright yellow. They were so neon when I got them. I was like, nobody's going to miss me coming down the trail. Some things about these shoes, they were very comfortable. They are 6 millimeter drops, so still pretty low. Not a big adjustment going from the Ultra into a shoe that did have some drop, but they do not wear as well. And this is the thing about trail shoes, because they're softer, the materials aren't quite as rigid and structured as a boot or a hiking shoe. They're going to wear out faster. So some of the issues I had, I don't know if you can see in here how the foam, it just wore through the back and through the foam. And at this point, I was further north on the trail, tons and tons of rocks, so I was really hard on my shoes. These have some nice grip on the bottom. There's actually more grip here. If you look at a brand new pair, you'll see there's like an extra little grippy piece there that kind of wears down fairly quickly. This pair in particular, dirt on the bottom, you can tell I've been out of them. My second pair, I think, has got about 300 miles on them, and I was getting ready, starting to think about replacing them when I ended up having to get off the trail at the end. So this is the pair that I still have, and I'll get a new pair before I go out and do my last makeup miles. But I really did like these shoes, and as I said, my only complaint is that they didn't wear as well as I would like. I mean, it would be great if you could get 500 miles out of a trail shoe, but I think with trail runners, and particularly the softer ones, and depending how hard you are on them, the terrain is like you might get 300 or 400 miles. So you could go through several pairs as you go through your hike. Now, some things to keep in mind about choosing shoes, and the mistake that I made, I think, early on was assuming that the shoes I started in would be the shoes that I would end my hike in. Your feet are going to change over time as you go through that process. You may have specific issues with your feet that you want to address with a new pair of shoes, so it's probably not a great idea to buy all your shoes at the beginning of the hike. But at the same time, as you're changing out shoes, you need to be wary of where you're buying them and who you're buying them from. Some outfitters, unfortunately, will just try to sell you a pair of shoes. Some outfitters have great people that are working there that can really guide you through the process. And one that I would call out in particular, a lot of people know about him, is Rob at Outdoor 76. He's what I call a shoe whisperer. And early in our hike, I was with Seven. We kind of started out together for the first couple of weeks, and she was having shoe issues, and we went into Outdoor 76, and he literally spent 6 hours with her going through different pairs of shoes, trying everything, and she ended up in a pair of North Face. And that's a shoe you don't see a lot of people wearing, but it worked for her, and I believe that she wore it through the whole hike. So don't be afraid to pick something that is not the most popular shoe on the trail. Pick the shoe that works for you. Love it, own it, embrace it, and go on, because that's what's going to make the difference between you having a great hike and a hike where you're constantly second guessing your foot placements, constantly worrying about, are you going to slip and fall? Are you having foot issues due to your shoes? Make sure you get the best shoes you can, the best shoes that you can afford, and when they start to really break down, trade them out. Now, one more thing I want to mention is insoles, and I was kind of wary about insoles at the beginning because I thought, well, shouldn't the insoles that come with the shoes be good enough? Unfortunately, they're not. A lot of them are very flimsy, and I did several hundred miles without insoles. I tried lots of different brands, some of the very popular brands, and they didn't work for me. And at the not the very end, about halfway through, because actually when I went home for my mother's surgery, which was in July, I went to the outfitter in Florida. Bill Jackson's is a real well-known outfitter in the area, and they had these Spanko insoles. And it turned out that somebody very early on in my hike had recommended these to me, said he got up off Amazon, and I thought, oh, I don't know, I've never heard of them before. I should have got these at the beginning when I got that recommendation. These things were perfect for me. They have little holes in them, they drain well, they dry quickly, they had some structure in the heel that I needed, some arch support that I needed, but they're also not really stiff. Like some of the other insoles you'll find are much stiffer in the shoe. So these can be very helpful for increasing your comfort level and helping with foot issues. And they also help, protecting you from the trail a little bit, because the trail runners tend to be pretty soft. Some trail runners have rock plates in them. I know my Sauconys had rock plates. These do not have a rock plate, but honestly, I did not feel rocks in the trail. Stepping on rocks was not a problem for me. It didn't hurt. In fact, I kind of like that feel of the road. When I drive a car, I like a car that you can feel the road. I don't want to float down the road in a boat, and I don't want to float down the trail in shoes where I can't feel the trail. So these for me were great because they were soft and cushy, and I had that trail feel. These gave me the extra support and protection that I needed, and it worked out to be a great solution for me. But like I said, you've got to find the solution that works best for you. It might not be what I use, it may not be what your friends use, but if it works for you, then that's what you should do. So go for it, and happy hiking.